Want a pension? You want a pension? Hi, my name's Steve from the CAP Pension Plan, and we're out here on the streets trying to find out if and how people are saving for their retirement. When you hear the word retirement, what's the first word that comes to mind?
Old age.
My parents.
It's not looking good.
Impossible.
Impossible. Really? Do you think there is a retirement problem in Canada right now?
I think so.
Absolutely.
I think there's going to be.
Oh, huge. I think people are struggling.
4 million Canadians are going to be retiring in the next 5 years. What do you think of that?
That's an astronomical number.
Yeah. Yeah. You played Would You Rather before?
I have played.
Okay.
Not about retirement, though.
Would you rather save all on your own and depend on individual investment returns, or have your employer match each dollar you save?
I would like my employer match.
To match?
Yeah.
Would you rather choose and manage your own investments or have experts help you with those investments?
I need help.
Would you rather have $1 million at retirement or have a steady monthly pension check for as long as you live?
Steady.
Steady?
Steady.
Do you know what a defined benefit pension plan is?
I do, and I wish I had one.
Oh, you do? That's amazing. So you might look for that type of pension.
I would say that's amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah,
You go
that
looking
makes
for-
sense.
Say giddy up.
Yeah, let's go.
Hello and thank you for joining us today. My name is Sabine Purewal. I'm Vice President, Solutions and Partnerships here at CAT. I'll be joined today by my colleague Karen Burnett, Director of Pension Solutions. Karen will be my co-host for this session. Now, the video we just watched really sets the stage for the topic we're going to dive into today, which is generational perceptions of retirement, in particular, retirement income. As you saw in the video, my colleague Steve spoke to a diverse group of Canadians, different ages, different genders, and a variety of ethnicities, and a common theme emerged. They all want secure income in retirement, and they're not sure if they're going to achieve that goal. Before we dive into our session, let's start off today with a quick poll. You should see the pop-up poll on the right-hand side of your browser. What is the fastest growing age group in the workplace today? Is it millennials, Gen Z, or people over the age of 65? I'll give you a minute to lock in your vote. Great. You might be surprised to find out that the answer is actually C, people over the age of 65. There's a number of reasons for this, one being that many in this group want to continue working past the age of retirement, but for many in this age group, they're finding they just can't afford to retire, or they're just unsure if they have saved enough to fund their retirement. Even those with personal savings are feeling that they can't keep up with rising costs. According to a survey by Edward Jones, 3/4 of Canadians feel that they need to work longer than their parents to have financial security in retirement. Combine this with the fact that many working families are now responsible for supporting the older generation, and recent news articles that claim individuals will need at least 1.7 million to retire.
$1.7 million. That is a very large number, and one that would feel unattainable for many. We're also hearing through conversations with employers that this worry adds to employee stress. In fact, financial stress is known to cause anxiety and even depression, which can lead to distraction at work, decreased job satisfaction, and absenteeism, all negatively impacting performance and productivity. Employees want help, and they're looking to their employers to provide them with that support, as the following slide illustrates. A 2022 poll by our peer plan Hoop shows 6 out of 10 workers under age 35 would sacrifice pay for a better pension. And 4 out of 5 workers under 35 say they're likely or very likely to change jobs for a better pension. Offering a secure retirement income plan can have a huge impact on an organization in terms of employee retention and productivity. Instead of going further on this, I'd like to turn things over to someone who's done considerable research in this area, Dr. Mary Donohue. Dr. Donohue stands as a beacon in the realm of digital wellness, leading as CEO, of the Digital Wellness Center and shining as a beacon of digital wellness. of the Columbia Business School Lang Center Innovation Fellow. Her groundbreaking work, rooted in research with over 34,000 individuals, has pioneered the discovery of generational anchoring benchmarks that bridge communication gaps and offer tangible solutions to modern problems. Elevated by Fortune magazine as one of the top 10 businesswomen of 2023, Dr. Mary's expertise in digital psychology and positive mental health has transformed the concept of wellness into a dynamic communication paradigm. She is committed to forging pathways out of burnout for individuals across both professional and personal landscapes. Her trailblazing strategies have enhanced the well-being initiatives of corporations such as Microsoft, TD Bank, Bank of Montreal, OLG, and Walmart. Welcome, Mary.
That lovely introduction. I really appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. I am here to talk to you about the rewards of communicating your value as an employee to each generation. And before I go much further, I think I should be clear that all of this is research-based. I spent over 5 years working with over 34,000 people to determine generational anchoring benchmarks. I talk a lot about it in my book, Message Received. But what that means to you is that we have a confidence level of 95% in our data. So 95% of the time, we're right on what we say. And also, we only have a slight margin of error, which is wonderful for research, which is 3%. So I'm going to start today with a fun little game, and I'm just going to give you about 30 to 40 seconds to figure this out. But what I want you to do is really quickly, I'm testing your brain here, match what happened on the left, the time in history on the left, with the generations on the right. So 1, 2, 3, you've got about 30 seconds. Go. That's good. How you doing? You've got about 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here are the answers. Each one of these generational events are part of what we call generational anchoring benchmarks, which means that's what frames your mammalian brain. Your mammalian brain is right here over your ear. It's part of, all of it is part of your prefrontal cortex, but this is your instinctive brain. Right now, the easiest way to think of your brain is broken into 3 parts. Your instinctive, your mammalian, and your reptilian brain is at the back of your neck. When we look at mammalian brains, that's where your gut feelings come from. That's where your sense of trusting something comes from. And how it all works is you experience something and that shapes your belief. So let's look at this. When we look at the silent generation, the end of World War II, the Korean War, the launch of Sputnik, the people going to the moon, what we see is a generation that was very, very cautious, afraid of war, but assured of themselves, knowing that they could move through trauma. When we look at baby boomers, we see a generation that's celebrating life, a generation that wants change, a generation that looked to young people. For example, we had a very young president at that time, JFK. But how did they get their news? Well, unlike the silent generation, they didn't read it as much in a newspaper. They heard it on the radio, on the car radio. They began to hear it on television, and they talked about it. They're very auditory. When you look at baby boomers, or you want to, have a fun little test in your reticular activator right here, ask a baby boomer where they were when they heard about JFK's murder. And what they'll tell you is, here is where I was when I heard. Now, if you ask a Gen X who follows about 9/11, they will tell you where they were when they saw the towers fall. That's because Gen X, if you look at what was going on at that time, was the release of the Macintosh computer, the introduction of the Apple brand, the personal computer, and the CNN generation. They watched war on television and they watched the Challenger disaster. They're very visual. Now let's look at millennials, which is the next generation. Look at what happened to them. It was very kinesthetic. It was very based in an introduction to technology and the freedom of this technology. And when we look at Facebook, it's a kinesthetic way of communicating. You have to type and then see and then read. Unlike Gen X, where you could see, now you can actually interact and feel. Then we have Gen Z, the newest generation. So we're talking about cusper, millennials, Gen Z, when we say 4 out of 5 people would change jobs for a pension. Now let's look at why. With Gen Z, this is the first generation that ever experienced going to school and being taught lockdown. They're very much like the silent generation. And by lockdown, we mean hide, because a bad man is going to come into the school and shoot you. And they experience this time and time again. They are much more fear motivated. And that's very important for you to know as we go through. So here is each of the generations, just so you can capture it with their milestones, with their answers, and how it works. Now, before I move to the next chart, I want to allow you to understand a simple way to look at these generations. This is not the traditional marketing generations. We look at boomers born from 1945 to 1960. These are the people staying in the workforce, 65 plus. Then we look at Adam. I always like to give people names. It makes them more personable. From 1960 to 1980. Trish, a millennial, 1980 to 2000. Taylor, Gen Z, 2000 to 2020. And then the Alpha generation, 2020 to 2040. I won't be talking about the Alpha generation, as interesting as they are. Now, let's look at why. When we look at each generation as an academic, I'm not trying to sell them anything. I'm trying to understand them. So these numbers were born out of how they were introduced to work, the technology they were introduced to when they went to work, the politics at the time, the educational trends at the time, the parenting at the time. So you can begin to see how the mammalian brain was framed. And the best way to think of communication, which any of you who are in HR or any of you who are in a leader position knows, is the prime pain point in a workforce is clear communication. Think about any problems that any of us can have. It's communicating how much we actually want to work with people. And that's because the smartphone in 2007 truncated communication. It changed how we all communicated. So one of the things I always advocate for people to do when they want to understand how best to reward each generation is to think of some of the anchoring benchmarks I gave you. And there's tons and tons more. I talk about it in our work. We offer a course on it. But I just want you to just think about those things I just talked to you about, which was a fear, but a sense of winning, a need for change with baby boomers, watching huge, horrific events on television and processing them visually. Millennials experiencing kinesthetically the experience of life through technology and the freedom it brings to talk to anyone around the world. And then Gen Z, the first thing they're taught at school is to hide because of the unknown. So look at how each generation already has different mammalian patterns. So what that means is you need to shift how you build trust. And the first question I get when this happens is, why do I have to shift? What do I want to do? Well, as a corporation, your job is to instill a sense of productivity so you can get the job done. As Deming said, the father of modern productivity, if people don't trust you, they won't work for you. Years ago, there was an experiment with Mayo. Some of you may remember that when he went into the Hathorn study, and he found that if you just showed a teeny bit of interest in employees and a teeny bit of care, their productivity increases exponentially. Unfortunately, in my research, corresponded with Edelman's Trust research, McKinsey's research, and Bain's research, less than 9% of your employees trust you. Oh, they'll probably tell you something different on your engagement survey, but they know they're being followed. So just be aware that because of the generational anchoring benchmarks, everyone has a lack of trust, and it's essential in productivity. So how can we build clear messages? Let's look at the rewards package for being a member of our team. And specifically today, I've decided to help you understand how pensions, which is a pretty hot topic in today's economy, is viewed by each generation and how it can build trust and how it can increase productivity. Now, you may think I'm somewhat cold looking at pension planning and productivity and all of these things, and when pensions are very personal. But I cut my teeth working with Walmart in Arkansas, and everything we did had to come back to, how does this help the business? How does this help the bottom line? Well, one of the things you need to understand, and most people don't think about, is trust helps the bottom line. And so how do we build trust, and what do we do to build trust? So let's look at boomers. They need pensions, and many of them will happily take a pension plan when they're 63 or 64, because they know, unfortunately, with the way the world is today and some of the bad investments they made or lack of investments, they're going to need a pension plan. So what did they grow up with? What was the generational anchoring benchmark? And I realize this is small, but don't worry, you can look at this chart anytime. They grew up in a stable post-war economic environment, and they love tangible returns from long-term investments. If you look at anything from bank, a lot of it is designed for boomers. They value clear, direct communication, and they understand long-term planning. That means if you sit down with them and you say, hey, we're willing to invest in you, their productivity is going to increase. So the predicted impact on productivity of pensions is increased productivity due to lack of anxiety. Remember when one of the ladies in the video said, what about pensions? And she said, well, I don't have one. I'll never have one. Well, that is a sign of productivity about the future, and that one of the things that you want to start thinking about. Now, let's think about Gen X. They grew up with flexible, portable pensions. They were the first generation to graduate into an economy that was laying people off. They were the last hired and the first fired. Any of you Gen X, I am a Gen X, remember this when you're graduating either high school or university. So anything we do has to be portable. We have to build trust over time. For example, matching RSP contributions. It talks about, we believe in you, we believe in your future. But because they experience so many economic downturns and they care about stability, they're very skeptical of corporate promises of, oh, I'll give you this, I'll give you this. Because if you look at the Jack Welch model of leadership, that was what they grew up with. And that was all over their heads. We'll give you this, we'll give you this, we'll give you this. Oh, darn, we're going to lay you off. And, some of you who are as old as I am will remember that the bottom 20% of every workforce was laid off. So when you're trying to engage them with pensions, the conversation you want to have with them is financial security. You're going to invest, we're going to invest. That's a great conversation, and that's a great way to begin to build trust. Now let's look at my millennials, perhaps the most misunderstood generation out there. They love the idea of innovative pension plans, of TFAs, of socially responsible investment. This generation pioneered socially responsible investment. And that's what builds value and trust with them. And when you create a pension, you're being socially responsible to your employees. I also, just at this time, and I forgot to say this in the beginning, is one of the things you should look at is the demographics of your entire workforce, and just look at how much this is going to help you. And when we look at millennials, as I explained earlier, they're often called digital natives because they value transparency and social responsibility. This is the generation that created Glassdoor, which allows everybody to go on and talk about their salaries no matter where they work, and talk about their experience of working for a different boss. They love flexible and modern financial solutions that align with their ethical lifestyles. Look at how they've transformed brands over time. And then we want to look at improved retention and motivation with a pension that aligns with them and their personal values. As you can see, a lot of pension products that you're going to be talking about today align with each generation. And then when we look at Gen Z, immediate benefits integrated with progressive pension contributions. That number, 4 out of 5 people under 35, is not an exaggeration. When you are taught to be fearful, what you need is security. And the one thing history has taught us is that pension is security. People would rather have a pension than they would $1 million. So as I come to a close, just remember, with each generation, you want to, as with Gen Z, enhance productivity through ethical management and responsive financial planning. Teach them how to plan for the future. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mary, for that insightful presentation. It looks like we have time for one question before I turn it back over to my colleague, Karen. So, Mary, I'm wondering, when organizations are thinking about tailoring their total rewards and benefits packages in order to provide meaningful value for employees of all generations, what strategies should they consider to build trust amongst the workforce?
I think what you should remember is what I taught you about the mammalian brain. Think about the trust triggers and how you can use those trust triggers. Understand how to increase that 9% to 12%. We've done it with a number of different organizations. But the first thing is clarity. I think Barnum and Bailey always said, give the people what they want and they'll be happy. So give them what they want and what they need and what you can afford. And I think that's the key to building trust, is transparency.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we can all agree, following Mary's presentation, offering a retirement plan is good for your workforce, your organization, and the Canadian economy. Mary mentioned a number of different pension arrangements available to employers across Canada, but studies have shown over and over that defined benefit pension plans that provide predictable lifetime income is the gold standard. The 90s, though, saw a demise of defined benefit pensions. In fact, it continued well into the 2000s. From 2000 to 2022, the proportion of Canadians covered by a DB plan decreased by another 24%. During this time, employers shifted to capital accumulation plans, like defined contribution or group RSPs, which put a lot of responsibility on the member, both for investing and decumulation. Unfortunately, many employers reaching retirement age today who only had access to a savings plan, like a group RSP, feel they don't have enough to afford to retire, especially in today's high inflationary environment. At the same time, we're seeing massive shifts in the workplace generations. Although many will work past retirement age, we're still seeing 15,000 Canadians retiring every month, resulting in an impending shortage of workers. Which means employers, to remain competitive, will need to set themselves apart to be attractive to potential employees. Which brings us to resurgence of defined benefit plans. In Canada, we're seeing a growing interest and resurgence of defined benefit pensions or modern defined benefit pension plans. Employers are becoming increasingly aware that offering a secure lifetime income has impacts on talent attraction and retention, employee wellness, and financial risk management. According to a survey of CEOs, as shown here, Canadian leaders say that attraction of new talent is their top internal challenge facing their organization, and the retention of workers are their main priorities. The current generation of employees expect more from their employers, and are looking for more out of their day-to-day, such as a positive workplace culture and benefits. And employers are beginning to see that modern defined benefit plans are a win-win. Employers get motivated and engaged staff, while employees receive secure and predictable retirement outcomes, reducing financial stress.
Thank you, Karen. Before we close things off, I'd like to once again thank Dr. Mary Donohue for joining us today and for her insightful presentation. If you'd like to learn more about Dr. Mary Donohue, I encourage you to visit her website, thedigitalwellnesscenter.com, or pick up a copy of her book available on Amazon called Message Received: 7 Steps to Break Down Communication Barriers at Work. I'd also like to remind you to join us at our fireside chat with our CEO and plan manager, Derek Dobson, directly following this session. To join the fireside chat, from the Mainstream Conference interface, look at the agenda and live stream button. After the session concludes, you'll be sent back to the main conference dashboard. If you'd like to join the fireside chat by clicking on Agenda and Live Stream on the left navigation bar. And finally, please feel free to reach out to me or your CAT Pension Solutions contact if you'd like to learn more information on today's session or DB+. To conclude this session, let's circle back to Canadian perceptions on retirement. To find an example of intergenerational workforce, we didn't have to look far. Our own workforce here at CAT reflects the diversity seen in many of the other Canadian workplaces. So we asked them, when did you know pensions were a big deal?
When I received my first annual statement in the mail at the time, I realized that the benefit that had built up over a year wasn't very much, but when it showed me what retirement looked like when I was going to retire, I was really quite surprised with that number, and knowing that that was lifetime income that would never run out made me think more about the future.
I knew pensions were a big deal when I helped a CAT member to retire. I will never forget the look of pure joy on her face when she realized she had options she hadn't even considered. It really helped me to understand that pensions can change lives.
As I learned more about DB pensions, I realized that my parents were going to be set for the rest of their lives because of it, and I'm just so eternally grateful.
It's really working as an actuary, and when I'm preparing those retirement statements for pensioners, I see the value in the benefit. They're going to be paid that benefit for life, so it's really a big deal.
Realized pensions were a big deal not only to retirees but their survivors as well. It's a very important time for them, and to give them peace of mind to know that there's survivor benefits from the pension plan to help them through and going forward.
Well, I did not think much about or appreciated pensions until I saw the role they play in collective bargaining negotiations for both employer and employee sides. At both of my former employers, pensions were brought in and were quite critical to successful collective bargaining talks. That really made me realize the value and peace of mind pensions offer to working people by providing retirement income security. I noticed how having a pension plan as part of the employment contract simply made for happier employees and more stable staffing.